Good morning. This is Talking Devils, your favourite Manchester United podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Barton, Manchester United writer and producer, joined as always by Manchester United legend Paul Parker to talk over. I was going to say another difficult week at Manchester United, but in keeping with last week, because we said, well, we got 2 wins to talk about, at least we've got consistency to talk about. So another consistent week because we've got 2 draws. Paul, how are you doing? You all right?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you, Wayne.
So,
Fine.
what games did you get to see at the weekend?
Well, obviously, I saw the game on Saturday. I was working on that one in studios in London, and then I was at West Ham yesterday.
Okay, so you
Yeah,
saw something good then.
I saw it was it was quite decent, really. Quite
Yeah.
second half, yeah, intriguing, I should say.
And I watched the League Cup final, which rock and a hard place. Who do you want to win that game? Certainly not Liverpool, but unfortunately, 2 teams can't lose a cup final. Um, Funny to see after watching the Europa final with the hair and all the criticism that he got, and then seeing what after Kepa with his, obviously he's passed with the League Cup final, and then coming on and everything like that. I mean, it takes something to have a worse penalty shootout than what De Gea had, and I think he managed it, which is unfortunate, but is what it is. Nice to see teams celebrating trophies. I forgot what that's like. Anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're watching on Facebook and YouTube, feel free to get your comments and questions in. If you're watching the replay, do say hello and feel free to comment because we still do reply to those. Comments after the show airs live. And if you're listening back on the audio, please be sure to give us a review on the platform you're listening on and, of course, subscribe as well. Right. So, dull, 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 dull. That's Manchester United's last week. And I know that people sometimes think I'm a little bit too critical. Both of us sometimes, and I refuse to go there this week. I'm going to go somewhere a little bit different. I'm going to deal in the realm of what I feel like I try and do this anyway, but be a little bit more conscious of it to be constructive with the way that I'm dealing with what we talked about. So, obviously, the results and performances speak for themselves. On one hand, you could say that the Atletico result was a good one, if the performance was not, because if you look at it from a purely simple point of view, you've had a bad performance, you've brought on a young kid, he scored a late equaliser, and you've got parity for the second leg, so you're not in any problems. You can start again. In olden days, olden days, any day before this season, it would have been deemed a better result because we got an away goal. Um, not in effect anymore. Before we talk about the weekend, I want to talk about the the. I don't even know what you would say. It's not really a criticism; it's an observation and it's something I'll bring up about Saturday's game as well. It'll be the first thing that I talk about with Saturday's game. But the thing that I want to talk about from the Champions League game, Paul, apart from anything else, well, let's start. I'll get into the constructive criticism side of it in a moment. Start with the positive. Alanga coming on. I talked to Sammy McElroy last week, and he praised Alanga's temperament for coming into the situation he did against Leeds and scoring, for coming on in Spain and scoring as he did. I mean that's. I'm still not entirely sure about Alanga, what his ceiling is, how good he is. But at the moment, when you've got a player who can come in and do the simple things unfussy in the way that he did in those 2 games, especially in Madrid, you've got to praise him for that, haven't you? It takes a lot to come into that situation and make the difference like he did.
He does, and I think he's a lad who's got that kind of that bit of arrogance about him, a good kind of arrogance in the way he plays. He believes in his own ability when he comes on the park, and his form up until the Middlesbrough game when he got left out of the Middlesbrough game, then brought on and
Yeah.
then missed the penalty. I still didn't understand why he wasn't starting. He's a young boy doing well, and you keep playing him, especially when the people in front of him are playing poorly.
Mm.
And that's the bit they sometimes, because younger ones of that today have got a little bit more to say. They don't kind of they're not maybe as respectful as what younger players were back in the day to pros, and they're quite outlandish in the way they act. And I just think someone like him should have been playing. You know, and then after that, then he doesn't really give him a good run. And then the form of Rashford and Sancho, you're kind of asking the question, why isn't this lad starting games? And then again, you see that when he comes on, he gets straight into it. He doesn't just take a minute or two or 10. He gets straight into it. He's looking to get the ball, and wants to he wants to be proactive, which
Yeah,
United aren't. In that front line, they're not proactive. It's kind of, let's think about it when we get there and we see what happens after. And he's not like that. He tries to make things happen. Some of the things he does is a little bit wrong, goes down a little bit too easy. In situations you want him to keep it, at
yeah,
least earn an honest foul or get beyond somebody. But he's done really well, and he needs to start games regular now. I think
yeah,
it's obvious to every fan out there that they see him, and he kind of gets people a little bit on their chair because they off their chair slightly because they know that he wants to get past somebody.
yeah,
And when he makes a run forward, he actually runs and he actually makes a pass for people. Where
yeah,
before, as we know with a little bit of Marcus Rashford would wait for the pass and then run. And in that moment, a bad defender will still will actually look a good defender.
yeah,
If and that's why sometimes it does make it easier for midfield players. Is if they know and believe that someone's actually going to be making a run, you just hit an area, as generally Fernandes was doing quite early on when he first joined United. He made a big difference in turning teams round. So Elanga has to start in a
yeah,
wide area, and then Rashford and Sancho can fight for the other spot because you might say Sancho would just be in front. There is signs that you see little glimpses. You didn't see it when he come in the sub the other day, ran round and round in circles.
mm,
To be perfectly honest, but him and Rashford are fighting for another spot to play regularly. But that says where United are in this moment because they've got two players. One, a local boy who's having a bad time. One who's come in for 70 odd million, who's still trying to find his feet. To be perfectly honest, not seen anywhere near that. But there's still a way to go for Sancho. But it's going to happen. Has to happen soon, and it has to happen consistently because that's why you paid £70 million for.
yeah. One last thing on Elanga before we move on. The timing of the finish, to take it as early as he did in Spain, that shows a player you already mentioned with the self-confidence, the belief to take something as early as that, because take it first time. I just thought I was made up for him on Wednesday. I thought he was brilliant, and I thought it was a great finish.
It was, and what he's gone and done is put a ball like that pass, and it caught out a great goalkeeper.
Yeah,
Because that's one thing, you talk about Atletico aren't what they used to be as such. They're still on that same framework, but they just haven't got the quality of
mm,
what they used to have before. But they're still, a hard side to beat. But the goalkeeper is the one, the one player that everyone would always talk about. There's so, talk about him coming to the Premier League on many occasions. They talked about him. Obviously, it hasn't materialised, but he's a really good goalkeeper. And by doing what he done, he gave himself the best opportunity to score another touch, and he would have been closed down.
yeah, yeah. No, yeah, it was fantastic. So move on to the segment of the show, which I shall call the constructive criticism corner. The first thing I'm a little bit concerned about is Lindelof playing at right back. Now, I thought, and I've been one of the biggest critics of Lindelof. I thought he played his best game for us at Leeds. I thought he was fantastic. Not just because of the assists, the pre-assist they call it these days, but the general performance in difficult conditions. I thought he was brilliant, and he has been good for some time, and he was brilliant on Sunday. Obviously, the selection on Wednesday was done to keep him in the side to make sure that he's rewarded for the performance. But he plays at right back. We've seen him play at right back before. We know it doesn't work. This is the problem. It's a process when you get a new manager and when everyone's clamoring for the new manager to come in and to do new things. The issue that you get with any new manager is that they want to see the options available to them. So that means going through the things that you've already seen before that don't work. One of them now being Lindelof at right back. He's been thinking, Rangnick's obviously seen him move forward with the ball, and he thinks, oh, do you know what? He might be an option at right back. And Lindelof's obviously going to say yeah, because he wants to keep his place in the team. And then we see what we saw, because he's not a right back and he doesn't do him any favours. And I'll talk a little bit more about what I saw the weekend, which fits into this category. But that's what it seemed to be, didn't it, Paul? It seemed to be very much a case of, I can't drop this player. I'm not really convinced on Dalot or Wan-Bissaka. And really, Wan-Bissaka played well at Ellen Road and he should have kept his place. That's the way that I see it.
I don't know why he felt he had to make an unforced change in the back line. The way the back line's been, you try to keep a bit of continuity as best you can.
Yeah.
And to make a big change like that, to take him from where he's been comfortable, and mostly this season has been Manchester United's best centre half, most consistent centre half when he's been in there.
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be saying that, but
Yeah.
as I always believe, that I'm willing to do is eat humble pie. And he's proved himself, and he's earned the right to be a regular player. The argument should be, who should he play with now? You know, but put him at right back, and he just didn't look comfortable. And yes, when it's all well and good talking about someone who runs out the ball, as he did against Leeds on 2 occasions, and looked comfortable and in control of what he's doing, looking composed, doing it in the middle of the park, because there's more areas you can duck into to get yourself away from people. But in a wide area, it's a different way of playing, because there's something called a touchline, and then and all of a sudden it becomes like a narrow corridor, and it's a different way of playing, different way of defending. It's a different quickness of mind to be in the centre half. And I played a lot of games in the middle for Queen's Park Rangers. In fact, I played all my games in the middle for Queen's Park Rangers, and then I had to learn to become a fullback again when I come back to United. And it took me a little while to get back to it, because the whole game changes. Now, we have to say is that Victor Lindelof has been doing that. That's all his career. It's in the middle, not a right back. So he can do a job, but when you're talking the game like that, and the actual thinking of it, what goes with defending, because it's not about making big tackles, it's about being in the right areas to stop passes going to a certain place and trying to force the player across or backwards. It was difficult for him, and I don't. We talk about this manager's great tactician. Well, I'll tell you what, be brave enough to make this big decision and say, I'm going to put a natural right back there in the game away from home in Europe, and I'm going to make a decision on who's going to play with Victor Lindelof.
Yeah.
That's what he should have done.
Yeah, and he didn't. And, well, we saw, I mean, it was a poor performance, not just a right back. And I'm not throwing Lindelof under the bus for that. I just think, like, all around the team, obviously we had poor performances. And Rangnick saw that, because the thing that he did in the second half is make 5 changes. That's a manager who's admitted that he's got it wrong from the start. And he was critical of the performance after. That takes us on to the weekend. I don't really think there's much more we can say about Manchester United 0, Watford 0 that we haven't seen in other games this season. It is infuriating to see a team playing this way. I've already covered it in the match report that's on the website, and I think I've been very, very critical of it there. And I just look at that, and I look at a team who should have been able to put away one of the worst sides in the division, and I'm not surprised that they didn't. The reason why is because they can't control games in midfield. The 4 ex-United players probably played better than any current United player. They put in a performance that was worthy of the stage that they were playing on, whereas none of these players who were representing United seemed to do that. And this is the problem that you've got with this team is it a matter of application? Is it a matter of will? Because if you're giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying it was the manager last time round, then you've got to look at all the variables. Is this a team who has got enough pride about their own performance to put in a shift? This opponent battered them in November, and they're one of the worst teams in the league. Really, in Premier League history, there aren't many worse teams. They're round about the bottom. They're a mess. They're not really good. It took basic organisation from Roy Hodgson, which we knew they were going to get, to outsmart us. It's embarrassing for these players. It's embarrassing for the players. It's not a matter of management. This is where the players need to take responsibility, because in any form in which that squad of players is sent out, they should be able to take control of a game like that. And they started quite well. They looked like they were going to score a couple, and then you sort of knew after half an hour when those chances started to dry up, and once Watford got a little bit of confidence in the play, you knew that United were going to struggle, because what happens after 20 minutes, instead of being patient, Fernandes is already gambling. Pogba's already taking a chance in possession. And the game wore on, Paul, and then Rangnick's making his changes, and fair play to him. He made all the right changes. He went to attack and try and win the game. But he ends the game with Fernandes and Pogba in midfield. And again, I'm going back to Lindelof at right back, an experiment that we've seen doesn't work. We know that Pogba and Fernandes don't work in a midfield anyway as individuals. So why on earth he thought that they were going to work in a pair when you needed to get a breakthrough? At that moment in time, you've got Pogba who is really going to take a chance on the ball. He's not really doing what you want him to do. When you're in the last 10 minutes of a game, how often do you need Pogba on the ball in the middle of the park? You need him. If you're going to have him on the pitch at all in that situation, you're going to need him really in one of the attacking positions. Fernandes is taking chances he shouldn't be taking in the 20th minute, let alone the 80th or 90th, summed up by what he does in the last kick of the game. He's taking a pot shot from 30 yards that has literally no chance of going in. He's hitting it out of frustration. I mean, this is another thing that's frustrating me about, and maybe, I don't know, maybe this is a good thing that Rangnick's seen this and he's tried it and he's failed. But when you're trying these players in midfield, Pogba and Fernandes, do we criticise the manager for that? Or do we say at this point in time, it doesn't really matter, he's seen it, it's something that he's seen and he's not going to try again, hopefully, which is all well and good saying that, but he's not going to be here in 6 months. He's not going to be the manager in 12 months, so it doesn't matter what he's getting wrong. Well, it does matter what he's getting wrong now, because he's not going to have the chance to rectify it in 6 months' time. Like say Pogba stays, we might see a new manager think, oh, do you know what? We should try Lindelof at right back, or we should try Pogba and Fernandes in midfield again. It's so frustrating to see. And Paul, without wanting to labour the point about, oh, it's Watford, blah, 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 but Pogba and Fernandes in midfield, yes, you can blame the manager for it, but if they can't beat Watford, if they can't fashion the chances to beat Watford in their position, that's an indictment on those two as players, right? They can't shy away from that. They've got to take the responsibility for it.
Yeah, I had to suffer watching Watford midweek. I was working at the Watford v Crystal Palace game,
Yeah,
and I saw Crystal Palace in theory. And I'm going to turn around. I'll give Watford 20 minutes of that game, and that started from when they equalised. Sissoko equalised off of what I'm going to say was poor goalkeeping. That he got his head up about a yard off the line in front of Jack Butland's. But other than that, Crystal Palace dominated Watford. This Palace scored 4 goals away from home, to be honest, and it could have maybe been a little bit more, a little bit maybe naivety. They just got absolutely Palace had 2 wide players, Elise, whatever you want to call him, fantastic player, honestly incredible. Every time I want to watch him play, just by how he floats with the ball. Yeah. That's another story. And he had Zaha on the other side. Zaha mostly had his most disciplined game I've ever seen him have for Crystal Palace. I don't know if it was out of respect, trying to, for Roy and Ray Lewington. He might have been that way, but because there's a love-hate with him, Harry the Hornet, and Watford fans. Every time he got it, he booed. He never reacted, and he did it with the ball. Scored 2 goals, 2 good goals. But Watford are awful. So when people are talking to me prior to that about Watford away to Manchester United, my words are, yes, United should win, but if they do win, it's going to be a difficult game. And then all of a sudden, people looking at me now, I think myself, they think I'm a sceptic. People just think, oh no, for some reason he's jealous of United or whatever. No, I'm not. I'm just saying that I'm saying the truth about it and what I expect to happen, because as you said at the top of everything, United don't dominate the ball. Palace dominated the ball against Watford. Crystal Palace, a team that's before this season didn't want the football under Roy Hodgson. They wanted to play in the counter and hope that Wilfried Zaha could nick a goal or Benteke would break his duck and score a goal. That's how Palace played, and hope they could win 1-0. But against Watford, you just think yourself, United, like you mentioned about Fernandes. I worry about Fernandes. When they signed him, I turned around and when I saw him, I thought to myself, wow, why is it taking him so long to get to a club of the magnitude of Manchester United? And I'm starting to see why. Because he has got a discipline problem in the way he plays. He plays as an individual. When things ain't going right, and as you mentioned about that, ambitious shot at the ends, that is him. He's ill-disciplined in what he does. He's not effectively a team player when it comes to it. And then the other point of it, which you mentioned, was about the fact of the manager, saying he's not going to be there in 6 months' time. That is the major problem. There is not a shining light for everyone to look to with personal problems or anything that's going on. They're not going to bother going and talk to someone who they believe is not going to be there or be in the same position. So everyone's holding everything in, or some of them are letting it out with the attitude of, well, you're not here anyway, I'm not fussed.
Yeah.
It's just the club is in a seesaw position, and this is Manchester United we're talking about.
Paul, on that situation there, and you're so right in everything that you've just said, but even without the manager, when you look at like the games that United have had and they should have killed off and they haven't won, Southampton at home, Wolves at home, this one, those players, it doesn't matter that the manager's not going to be there in 6 months. And you can see, and we'll get on to Ronaldo in a minute, but you can see we've got Champions League football still to play for. I know like it's not a trophy, whatever, but these players are like, I don't think, did they realise that that's ebbing away? He's not going to be there. So what, they're not going to have Champions League football in a few months? Like some of them care about it. Ronaldo cares about it because that's his highest level. He wants to still be there. He doesn't want his career to go down the pan. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying he was good, by the way, on Sunday, Saturday, he most definitely was not. But the point remains, there's a lot of these players who I don't understand I just don't understand what their priority is, because it doesn't seem to be themselves and it doesn't seem to be United. Do you know what I'm saying with that? Because is that way too critical? I don't understand, because he's so passive and they don't care. But they have to care because these are years of their peak of their career. Ronaldo's like way past his peak. You've got Fernandes and Pogba. They're either playing for a move, they're playing for a new contract, they've got to be playing for something, but it doesn't look like they are.
I just think footballers are different now in that sense. I mean, if I'd have played, I had 5 years at United, and I could have had the best 5 years of my life, and I did have a great 5 years there. But I had the added bonus that I walked away with something to put away in the cabinet.
Yeah.
And that's the bit that keeps my relationship with everything I do. Is that what I won? Everything about that. The England bit comes into it, but it's about that. But if I'd have not won anything at United, it would have been, oh, he played for United. The greatest thing you can do is go to a club like Manchester United, or a club in that same bubble, and go and achieve.
Yeah.
Go and achieve, and know that, and you walk away with something. I think in certain ways, if you're at a club like that and you walk away with nothing, then I would turn around and say that there's something wrong, that you was with the wrong people, or you were the wrong person and you ruined something. Because you don't end up at a club like that and then you shouldn't feel happy or content if you walk away with nothing in the bag when you walk away, because you'll be forgotten. And that's the last thing I think any player would want to be doing if they went to a club like Manchester United. But I don't think a lot of them are bothered. They'll walk away and they'll be quite happy and what they've done, and they think that's okay because they've got signed shirts and everything, and they can tell people what they've got. They can show people maybe their cars or houses they got and talk about that. But after a while, that gets a bit boring, because generally you find that most people want to talk who you meet. If someone could take them forward 20, 25 years on from where they are, and they're in this position, they could actually see how their life is. I think they might understand it, because as much as anything now, when someone comes up and they talk about something like that, where before while you're playing, you kind of go, oh, but enough make a difference, enough give you a little bit of a kind of a buzz to think, wow, someone, they recognise you without your hair and things like that. or you're
Yeah.
20, 30 years older. And it's a good feeling, but I don't think these players get it. I think they believe that now where they are, that's it. And as you talk about, as you mentioned, is that it is about the players now because some of them have been through quite a number of managers at one football club. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't, if that football club was, i.e., say Watford, the worst, the worst maybe in the world with managers, you think
Yeah.
yourself, yeah, well, that's what they're all about. But it's Manchester United.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense, and it's almost like carbon copying what happened after Samat, really, in certain ways, the way the club are going through that. But I don't know if we can question the players then at that given time
I
in
was
that
literally,
side of it.
Paul, you're reading my mind. I was about to say all this. Like, I've been lucky enough, obviously, to work with a lot of those players, and obviously through that, I've had so many conversations with fans who were alive and they saw those guys play, and you can tell by the footage and everything that you've seen that even when the club went down, when they played in the second division, when they came back up and they weren't challenging for the league, there was a connection with the fans and the support because of the football that they wanted to play and because of the pride that they had in the position that they were in. And I'm going to put this one to you, Paul, and I wonder if, even under Sir Alex, even in the latter days, so let's talk 2009, let's talk Ronaldo, Rooney, Tevez. Even in those days, you had a balance of maybe 7 or 8 players who were going to do the donkey work. They were going to do the leg work. They didn't want to be the one. It didn't matter if they were the one who scored the goal. They were the 8 or 9 players doing the donkey work around so that the 1 or 2 stars in the team would shine. And I think it was represented when he brought off Matic, and maybe, Matic was getting a bit leggy, getting a bit tired. But Matic is a donkey work player. He does the unfussy stuff. He's going to try and find the pass. He's going to try and find the breakthrough. He's not necessarily going to go for the screamer in the same way. He doesn't want to be the one looking for a highlight reel. He's not that kind of player. Whereas you've got maybe even 7 or 8 players, even the defenders, and maybe even Luke Shaw, maybe even Harry Maguire, the way that they pass the ball and they try and be like, Maldini or Beckenbauer or something when they're not. Players who don't understand their own limitations and they try to be something that they're not. They're only careful. They're only looking at their own highlight reel. Even in your day, when you were playing, but you guys were all brilliant. And I'm not just saying that because basically you sat here and you were my first team who I absolutely fell in love with. But there were still functional players who were doing things like they were doing the donkey work, knowing that they weren't going to be the one who got on the end of the cross, or you know what I mean. They were doing it for each other. They were getting that goal for each other, winning the game, and then if the game was won, then some of the exhibition football would come out, or if the form was up and the exhibition football would come out. Sometimes I look at these players and I think that they're trying exhibition football and they're nowhere near exhibition footballers. You've got to prove. It doesn't matter if you can do a trick on the ball. You've got to prove that you can actually put the ball in the net and actually win the game. And I know, again, I'm going down this route of being too critical, but the balance is wrong, is what I'm trying to say. On Saturday, you've ended up with, let's say, Sancho, Rashford, Ronaldo, Pogba, Fernandes, and Elanga. And only Elanga in that one is going to be the one who does all that dirty work. He's going to be the one making the off-the-ball runs. He's going to be the one trying to drag the play around, and all the other players are waiting. Give me the ball. I want to be the hero. And it doesn't work. The balance is all wrong. You can get away with maybe 1 or 2, and you need the others to be like Matic and Elanga running around, even Fred to an extent, running around, making the space so that those players can flourish. Is that one of the bigger issues that we're seeing at the moment? Because we can say one thing about Rangnick at the moment is that we are dominating the play a little bit more than what we were. We're just not doing, Atletico Madrid give us all the ball and we didn't do anything with it. Watford happy for us to have all the ball and we don't do anything with it. We're having the ball, we're dominating the possession numbers, but we're not actually dominating the play. And is that a fair assessment? To say that the balance is wrong with the players. Are you not having enough players willing to do the work off the ball in order for the players who have got the quality to shine?
Well, I think the balance of the whole squad at Manchester United is wrong. To be honest, too many of the wrong players, too many of the wrong players with the wrong mentality to play for a club of the stature of Manchester United. and maybe just some of them who are just winging it at this moment in time, hoping that they can remain invisible and not get found out, but still be at a club like Manchester United.
Yeah.
There was an old saying in football, and every club would use it. Doesn't matter what level, what division you're in football, and more so, I felt it when I went to Manchester United because of how everything changed for me and the physical and mental side of it of playing games. You play games for QPR when I was at Fulham, and you go out there and you just play. You have the odd few big games, local games, where you raise yourself when you played a bigger team. Every game was a big game for United, and it took me a while to get used to it. I started my first season. I was having hamstring problems. I wouldn't have known what a hamstring problem was. I just initially thought it was cramping. I thought I'd get through it. Didn't do myself any favours. That my naivety, but I wanted to play. But what the thing is that the saying was, and I think even Sir Alex would have said it a lot during his times in even if he didn't say it like that, he would say it in another way. You have to win your battles to win the war.
Yeah.
And there's not enough players who want to do that. Like you say, for the moment that kicks off, they want to go in exhibition mode. They want to do their own thing. And you can't do that because everybody wants to beat you. And now, I think it's even more so now, teams have got an opportunity to beat Manchester United, and they want to go and grab it because people will talk about them winning the game. No one's going to mention, but this is mostly one of the worst Manchester United teams ever, squads, since Sir Alex retired. That won't get mentioned. It's just there in black and white, or on people's phones or tablets about them winning. And that's what people are looking at. They're seeing it as easy. They know that Paul Pogba, if you try and win the ball off of him, don't stress yourself out. You'll get another opportunity because he will always have that extra touch. He'll always try and hold it a little bit longer to prove a point, trying to win a foul rather than be proactive and try and help the team. It's all too many individuals at this moment in time. And so I don't know, this roll forward 12 months, we could be doing the same thing again on the 28th of February, Wayne. Talking like this about Manchester United. But it is not going to change until what happens upstairs changes and the club decides to become a football club again. And the priority is about believing that what they can get, if they get it right on the pitch, they will get even more off the pitch. It doesn't matter how much you're getting now, it's slowly deteriorating because of what's happening on the pitch is living off, a show business signing. It's not about a football team. The football team is not encouraging anyone to really support it. And if you're talking about overseas support, a lot of the overseas in Asia is about winning games and winning trophies. And that's how it's played. And after living out in that region for 8 years, I've got a better idea than most on how it works. The fact of they just believe in wins. And if you're winning regularly, they will slowly turn and support and they will spend money. And if that's how the club are looking at it, then they're losing money because the team are not getting near winning trophies. So the most positive way is to become a football club again. The priority is to get the right person in to manage and let them manage. Let the manager choose the players that he wants to work with, players with a bit of fight in them. And it doesn't have to be big names to sell shirts. It has to be a team that is successful and you get people supporting the team, not individuals and just following around an individual, following a team. And that's one thing that is needed.
No, you're absolutely right. And I think you mentioned John McGinn before, and he's just, I'm not saying John McGinn's the player, but you need 2 or 3 John McGinns in this team, basically. You need the ones who are going to pick up the spade and do the work rather than the ones just waiting to literally what we've already said. They're flogging the dead horse with that one. But sometimes it needs to be said when you've watched it go like it did again and you just seen the players do what they always do and think, flipping heck, these guys humiliated you in November. Watford humiliated you. You can't blame the manager. You can't blame him this time for sure. You've got to go out there and put the ball in the net. I made a comment on Twitter about Ronaldo after the game, Paul, and I think it got misconstrued. The reason why, and in fact, let me just come to Patrick's comments before I go on to Ronaldo, because he's posted 3 comments here I want to come to. Morning, Patrick. Hope you're doing well. He says, good morning. Picking up on Paul's point about players believing they've arrived despite achieving little in terms of silverware. Do United overpay on salaries, impacting their hunger? Mo Salah earns less than certain inconsistent players who we seem to bend over backwards to keep. Do we indulge players too easily? Paul, easy one that. Yes or no? Yes.
Without a doubt. And to be honest, I when I signed for United, I could have signed for more for a team in London.
Yeah.
I could have done that to stay in London. I could have still lived in the area where I kind of spent a lot of time in, where I'm living now, and I could have stayed here and stayed in London, but I didn't because I wanted I was sitting there talking to the team and the manager, and I went and I jumped in the car and went straight up to Manchester, and it wasn't about money why I signed. Not in a million years. And they are overindulging players with money and new contracts. Why? You want people to be hungry. You just don't want people. They're earning good money anyway. What difference is another 5, maybe some? What difference is 10 grand going to make to your lifestyle? It's not really going to make a difference if you're earning that up there already. There's only so many houses and cars you can buy. But it's just about what do you want to get out of it? What is your afterlife? What are you thinking about? What's your ego saying to you? Go out there and give it everything for a big club, and if it fails, you can always go back. But people will respect you because you tried.
Yeah. Patrick also, I mean, we did already cover this earlier, but Patrick says, I very rarely see our defenders deal with stuff, e.g. booting to Rose Ed rather than supposedly trying to be too clever and play out from the back. Yeah, that's the stuff that we were talking about earlier. Just quickly on Ronaldo, Paul. Obviously, what I saw against Madrid wasn't very clever. It's kind of a continuation of a trend that whenever the ball goes forward and it comes back, Ronaldo it's not even a jog, it's sort of like a very slow walk back to the play. And he's always he hangs around 6 or 7 yards behind the defenders, and then he's sort of like very, very slowly coming back into line, so he's onside. But by that time, we've already got the ball, and you can see the people are looking forward for it, but they can't play forward pass because Johnny Ronaldo stood 20 yards offside, and the play's slowed down by 20 to 30 seconds every single time. Now, obviously, his timing and running and everything like that is great. I look at him and I think when he's throwing the toys out of the pram, or when he's frustrated, or when he storms off the pitch and he's not applauding and everything like that, I can almost tolerate that more than this disinterested version. Do you know what I mean? Because now, and if Ronaldo's disinterested, if he's not got the hunger, something's definitely wrong. Because what he's saying is, I don't trust the players around me to put the ball on the plate for me. They're not going to create the chances. I'm not absolving him, Paul. I'm not saying that he's not to blame, because obviously he's also had some chances that he should have taken, and sometimes he looks like a 37-year-old. Even though he's supremely fit as he is, let's say he looks like a normal 34-year-old or normal 33-year-old. He's a bit leggy. He's not the same player that he was. I just wonder, do you think that when he signed for United this season, that there was this perception put around us that we finished second and we'd signed Varane and we'd signed Sancho, and that maybe even Solskjaer tried to talk this up to him, that we were in a position where we were going to challenge for the title? And then he's sort of coming to us, and then all of a sudden he's found, wow, these wingers can't cross me the ball. We've got fullbacks who can't take a corner. Like Fernandes is the main creator, but even he gets a little bit rash sometimes. I know Fernandes to Ronaldo it's been a fairly profitable route of goal, but not as profitable as you would want. Pogba's got a lot of talent, but my God, doesn't he waste a lot of time? Do you think that he was he was sold on a different reality, and maybe we were sold a different Ronaldo as well? But I think that, if you put Ronaldo in a City team, City create loads of chances, I still reckon he'd probably get another 10 goals, and he still scored like 15 goals for us. I reckon you've got Ronaldo on 25 or 30 at City, you'd probably get a few at Liverpool, probably a few at Chelsea as well, but at United, where you don't have. And I say that, and we still created the chances on Saturday. So maybe I'm talking complete crap. Paul, where do you stand on that? Because it's a different thing when Ronaldo looks frustrated to when he looks unbothered, and he's starting to look unbothered.
Well, I look at it first of all and ask the question. I don't think it can't be answered. Only the people in the right position can answer it. Did Ollie want to sign him? That's one question.
Yeah, that's a
Did,
good one.
yeah, the other one is, did Man City really want him? Did Pep Guardiola really want a Ronaldo in his squad, with his squad of 100% disciplined players who do what they're told? They all work hard for each other. No one walks anywhere. I
Mm.
think Grealish has had issues, and that's the reason why Grealish hasn't been playing a bit. I think
Yeah.
the injury side of it is maybe a little bit of a smoke screen. There's been issues with him. And you look at it, you can't tell me one Man City player who you'd question him about wanting to be there, just by the way they play. Pep Guardiola, everything he does, even when he had his great Barcelona team, they never stopped working.
Mm.
Ronaldo would not have fitted into that. They didn't need to bring in a superstar. They've made superstars.
Yeah.
De
Yeah.
Bruyne, he makes them. He makes players better. Ronaldo is a player who he couldn't make better because he was always something. Said he was going downwards. He wouldn't have been a player they would have signed. So I believe the myth about Man City wanting him and United, I think that was a myth. I
Yeah.
think that was made up to make the whole thing, the package, even better. When we talk about Ronaldo, about crosses, Manchester United don't cross balls. Luke Shaw doesn't cross balls. It's all little balls into feet. You're talking about two inverted wingers they always want to play. They don't look to cross the ball. Rashford just dribbles and dribbles. Someone takes the ball off of him and then he walks back. On the other side, we talk about Sancho, very similar, very rarely crosses it, but which he did cross a lot of the ball when he was playing in the Bundesliga. And then we talk about Ronaldo playing, and you said about him walking back. That says a lot, really, about the way it's been. It's the old saying: if he doesn't score, you ask yourself what you're getting from him, and that's what it is about at the moment in time. The problem is there's people out there who are being too sentimental about the whole situations. There's people out there which you see on Twitter. If you don't like Ronaldo, don't follow me. Don't support my team. Sorry, it's about opinions. And the opinion is at the moment is that if he doesn't score, what are you getting for him? You can relate to anybody. Centre forwards number 9. If they're working hard, Sparky went through a few bad patches,
Yeah.
but you'd never question Sparky's commitment, desire, and application for a game of football.
Yeah.
In Sparky was one of them ones. If something was there to be won and his nan was in front of it, he would tackle for his nan to get that ball to make a goal or to score a goal.
Yeah.
So it's not about the facts, but it's about what he's doing to help the team if he's not scoring. Is he encouraging people? People are saying, give Ronaldo the armband. What is it? Give him the armbands for another PR stunt or something. Or give
Yeah.
him the armband because he's going to help the likes of Elanga, the young players. He's going to encourage them. No, he's not going to encourage players. He's going to get frustrated with himself. When like at the weekend, he missed. There was one that hit the post when
Yeah.
maybe he should have got a better contact. His reaction then was to stop, put his hands on his head, and I'm going to say this: have a camera moment while the player's going back up the other end.
Yeah.
It's that's the bit. So people have got to understand now. There is no, and it was said by the manager himself. I mean, the proper manager was that you can't have sentiment in football. In
Yeah.
theory, you can't be sentimental. You have to look at it as real and what's going on now. And Ronaldo is not helping United in the way he's playing, because you want someone to play off, and like you say, the players are looking for him, and he's after something. He's 5-6 yards in an offside position.
Yeah.
That's not helping the team. Get
Right.
goal side and have your rest then. It's old stuff, old school, but a strong manager, someone who is actually there in black and white as a manager on top of his head, will say, get goal side, because we might recover the ball back quick and then go to attack. And it's simple, and with all the experience he's got, he doesn't help them. So some people, when people see this, and someone might even write it up somewhere, as it usually does, that is the truth of it. And I always say to people, if you want Ronaldo, if you want Manchester United to go forward as a team and be what they should be, I should say, and competing with City, Chelsea, and Liverpool, then Ronaldo is not the person to take the club forward. The club have to look beyond that and have to maybe go backwards a little bit to go forwards in that sense. Bring in a younger centre forward, someone who needs to learn or something. But you can't keep, because he's not a centre forward and he's dropping off.
The other thing, Paul, sorry to interrupt, is that even if he was at his best, the amount of building that United have got, he's still 37. He's going to be 38, 39. You can't build your future around that. And at best, if he's going to be around, he's going to be he's going to be the best 38-year-old, but he's still going to need to put all the other places to. At that point, you're compensating for him, aren't you? At that point, and I don't know. I look at this United team and I think, Shanko there he's made a comment, could have played Elanga or Mella off Ronaldo instead of Ronaldo this season. Yeah, we could have done that. I don't know if either of them. Obviously, Elanga's sort of come in really recently under Rangnick.
It's the movement, Wayne. It's that movement that makes the difference and shift people about. And you're talking about Watford with. The centre halves was Samir and Craig Cathcart.
Yeah.
And both of them got shifted around a little bit by Mateta, who's in there, Mateta's not a very good centre forward, but he caused them problems. And just sheer pace and movement. And you don't have to be a great centre forward, but I'll tell you what, anyone who moves around causes centre halves a problem, especially static centre halves, which Watford had. Now, let's put it this way. You've seen Harry Maguire when he gets people moving around, and he doesn't have to be up against a great centre forward, a big name. Just any kind of movement, somebody threatens to go in behind. Harry Maguire is on his back foot, he's on his heels, he's panicking, he doesn't know whether to hold or to drop. There are questions you want to ask, and by asking those questions, you're affecting somewhere else who someone else might get the joy of it. At the moment, Ronaldo's not. How many times have we seen him trying to go one against one? He pushes it to the side. People nick in front of him and take it away. They couldn't have done that before. And as fit as he is, the football now is different. Yeah. There's a way to play as a 37-year-old, but you're not going to be able to do those things you did before. So you adapt your game. Yeah. I don't think he hasn't adapted his game that way as the way, say, Ibrahimovic had. In that sense of the way he played. He played it. He was supposed to be but he knew he realised his strengths and weaknesses, so he just played to his strengths of what he knew. And Ronaldo hasn't done that. And his way should be to focus on demanding the ball to be in the box, telling people. He goes around saying deliver and waving his arms, the same as, again, I use his name, Sparky used to do with Andre. Sparky used to go mad at Andre because Andre would go to cross and then cut in and then go back. And Sparky used to go across and say things to him. Yeah. And then Andre would deliver. But if you're going to use him, and I think the present coach, interim manager, consultant, that's all the different titles he's got, he should see that. And I haven't got his background, I haven't got his CV in coaching. But if he's going to be, just keep crossing it. And all of a sudden, then you'll find that once you start crossing it, teams will drop back into that because they're worried about Ronaldo's movement, and then that might allow Fernandes or Pogba to get more space in that attacking third, but with more opportunities to shoot.
Yeah. Patrick says, to be fair to Ronaldo, I think Cavani's sick notes and losing Greenwood means we're a little exposed. If we had the option, we could give him a rest for a few games. Maybe. I do think when you look at the weekend as well. That he's a convenient scapegoat. Is a convenient excuse. Like everyone's going to look at Ronaldo. We're giving him like the spotlight. And we're going to talk about him, and we're going to criticize him as we have done. But yeah, you're quite right. You've got these other factors as well, and we've talked about that. Cavani not being there. This idea. I mean, Shanko mentioned it earlier. These other players, they've also talked about a changing system, all that sort of stuff, and. It's just one of a multitude of problems that United have got. And obviously, because they're so reliant on Ronaldo in terms of not his goals, but in terms of like he's the only centre forward that United have got, even though, like you said, Paul, he's not really a traditional centre forward, that that's the hole that United find them in. One of many holes, I should say. Before we wrap up, let's talk about the City game. We talked about things that give us a lot to learn about, Paul. You look at this United team. People are saying they've improved, that they're having the ball and plenty of shots. It's like a slightly less dull version of Louis van Gaal's football, which I can get on board with, because at least we are having shots. We're trying to control the game in the way that Van Gaal did, and it's not as boring as that. But it's not a high bar. And I think these next few games that you've got, City in particular, and they're a very convenient opponent for this, it's going to tell us a lot. I know you say, oh, well, Watford would tell us a lot, like, would we learn something from the Brighton game? And the fact is, we've come on this podcast every week, so we still don't know about this United team, even though the answers are getting progressively more depressing because they're not convincing. Against City, these players have got a lot, again, to answer for, not least because of the result in the autumn. But we now have to look, is this a functional team that's improved under Van Gaal, under Rangnick? Are they going to control the game in the same way that they have been doing the other ones without a cutting edge? Or is it going to be a team that plays even worse than it did under the previous manager? Because, yes, we can look at the autumn and we can look at those terrible games, but we can also look at the fact that Solskjaer had a pretty good record at City. He had a pretty good record in big games. There's a big grey area there where I think these players, I mean, we've come on this show, we've even said it in this one, I think the players have exposed themselves, we know all about them now. But this is another one of those games, isn't it, where the players have there's no grey area for them, there's no hiding place, they're going to find out all about them.
Yeah, and after watching what Everton tried to do against City at the weekend and just sit back and hope, and sometimes you reap what you sow, don't you? If you do that in a certain way, and Everton tried it, it was their, the fans went, the fans suddenly went into the mode of we're playing against Liverpool, and it suddenly got very, very nasty and hostile. Yes, it should have been a penalty, but at the end of the day, they didn't deserve it, Everton, in that sense of the way they tried to play. And Ollie did have a good record against them. He did okay, but there was no point in just worrying about beating City because it wasn't what a football season's about. If it was, then Man United would be sitting with more Premier League titles if it was just about beating City. But I just see it as a little bit different. This game is going to be about the fans more than anything. The fans are going to go there. Obviously, I don't see too many being positive. I don't see any really, but they're going to go there and they'll have a good go for the team. The fans will, to try and get them going and get them understanding what this game means at this moment in time. They don't want to be embarrassed at this moment in time again. So just what you're seeing there, the 0-0, and you're looking for creativity, and you think to yourself, right, if they do get the ball, what are they going to go and do? Or when they do get it, what position in the park are they going to be in when they do retrieve the ball? And you will find 9 times out of 10, they're going to retrieve the ball in their defensive area. And then they've got to try and get forward. And there's that great big gap between the midfield defence and where Ronaldo's going to be. And it's going to be very, very difficult. Because then you're looking to get the ball into a centre forward to hold it up, maybe earn your foul so you can shift up the park. It's going to be very difficult. But if anything, United have to score that first goal. Have to get more of City, then pushing on to try and hope then that they can maybe go and get a second. When I was there, I think I was there for when Martial scored at the Etihad. That game. I'm trying to think. I think was that the league? Was that the league? It was the league game. Yeah. It was the league. Yeah. I was there for that, and it was a really, really solid counter-attacking away performance. They got what they deserved in that game. But I think the squad, in a way of kind of, what's what I'm looking for now? Honesty and application has gone from that. That's gone away a little bit. Some of that. It isn't as that way. That bonding, what was there then in the way, it's kind of disappeared. So I do worry about how this could be. And if it happens too early, they get dominated too early and they concede too early, I just wonder about certain individuals. What are they going to be like? What's their discipline going to be like?
Yeah, absolutely. These are the big questions we'll be picking apart next week. And that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed the show, I'm sure you've enjoyed listening to us criticise United, even though we tried not to. But this is the reality of where we are. Trying to talk, I mean, what can you say after you've drawn 0-0 with Watford? You've got to call the players out. You've got to talk about it. I mean, I've gone on record many times this season of sort of saying, you know, you got to blame the owners and all that sort of stuff. Is what it is. Anyway, that's it for this week. If you've enjoyed us, give us a like and subscribe on YouTube. Give us a review on the platform you're listening on if you're listening back on the audio platform. We'll be back next week. Stay well, stay safe.